Welcome to the Healing Courageously podcast, where we engage in open, honest, and healthy conversation about everything from addiction, abuse, and recovery to marriage, family, and spirituality. We hope you find this podcast helpful. Our goal is that you will find a new way of living as you look closer at yourself in these areas of your life, which will lead to a happier and healthier you. Now here's your host, Randy Boyd.
Well, greetings and welcome to this episode of Healing Courageously. And today we're going to have a conversation with Stephany Cochran. She is the, sorry, this happens to me all the time, Stephany. She's one of the leaders at the Green Shoe Foundation in Oklahoma. And I'm going to read you her bio to start off, and hopefully my brain will stay focused on this. Stephany Cochran earned a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and a Master's of Science in Counseling and Student Services from the University of North Texas. She is passionate about helping others reach their full potential through compassion, leadership, and education. Prior to joining the Green Shoe team, she was a licensed professional counselor in Texas and specialized in working with families, youth, and children. She facilitated experiential groups for children and teens struggling with emotional and behavioral difficulties. Through that practice, and as a mom to two incredible boys, her next move was close to the heart when her team started a private school for children and youth that offered individualized academic and therapeutic treatment plans. Once relocating to Oklahoma, Stephany's path transitioned into higher education, working with non-traditional students in the career college setting. Now, as an executive director of Green Shoe, she is truly rooted where she gets to use her remarkable gifts at a place she loves to be. Stephany is a huge advocate for self-care, whether through leadership or simply taking a friend to dinner. Creating mental self-awareness is what she lives and breathes. When Stephany isn't coaching others, you can find her tossing a ball to her fur baby Pinsky, reading Harry Potter or Twilight for the 100th time, or spending time with her family, watching Hallmark movies, or, I love this part of it, cheering on the Texas Rangers during baseball season. So why don't we all just welcome Stephany, and I'm going to bring her in right now, and we will have a chat with Stephany. There we go. There you are, Steph. I said I forgot your title right off the bat. I mean,
no, that is totally okay.
Yeah. So, and when I read this, earlier today, and Texas Rangers during baseball season, I thought, just like my wife. My wife's a Dodger fan, though. Right?
Oh, okay.
Die-hard Dodger fan. I mean,
well, but here in Oklahoma City, we've got their AAA team. So just being a baseball fan, we spend quite a bit of time even down there. So yeah, we get to see a lot of their prospects coming up.
That's awesome. Yeah, my wife is. I like to give her a hard time. I don't really have a team that I particularly like in baseball. I love the game. I used to play. Mm-hmm. I just like to give her a hard time all the time about her Dodgers. That they're going to blow it again. Don't worry about it. Yeah, they're here, but.
Yeah, well, welcome to being a Rangers fan for a while now. So,
well, it's all about having fun, right? We got to have fun.
Oh, absolutely. That's what. Yeah, having fun, and it's something as a family that we just always have loved.
Yeah.
So.
And my son just moved to Buckeye, Arizona, which is right next to Glendale, where all the spring training camps are.
Yeah.
So she's already. I mean, he just literally moved there last weekend. So she's already got her whole spring plan. I'm going to Buckeye. Oh. All right, babe, whatever you want to do, have fun,
Yeah.
So I was introduced to Stephany through my good friend and like a brother from a different mother, Eddie. God, there it goes again. Yeah, I had COVID back in September, and it's that one part of your brain and he's a
Oh
great
yeah,
friend. Yeah, you know.
yeah. No, Eddie Fisher.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. Thank you very much, Eddie Fisher. I call him Stitch, so his nickname is Stitch. So to me, so he's a great advocate. So we're just going to be here. We're going to talk about what Stephany does, what the green shoe is, and all these different aspects that they deal with, they work with. I don't like using the word deal, but work with
Hmm.
that green shoe. So I guess the first question I would ask you, Stephany, is can you tell us about you and your journey and what led you to green shoe?
Oh, that's a great question. And yes, there's the bio, but I feel
Right.
like that's such a little,
Yeah.
snapshot
Yeah.
of me. But born and raised in Texas, and yes, I know I live in Oklahoma, and I'll get to that in a minute. But went to the University of North Texas with the goal to study under Dr. Gary Landreth, and was a certified play therapist. That was kind of my passion. I started just right out of college working for an agency, and we worked with all of the tough kids, the kids that nobody wanted.
Yeah.
And I'm even talking the little ones. My favorite were the kindergartners that were getting kicked out of kindergarten. But kind of the rough and tumble, and just really loved kind of getting immersed in with working with kiddos and their families and couples counseling, and did my internship there, and just kind of grew my counseling experience with that. But we found that one of the challenges we had is we could work with these kiddos, out of school hours, during the summertime, and had a lot of great success, especially with the experiential work. However, they weren't being successful in school. And that's kind of what led us to, what, we need a school that not only deals with the individual learning needs, but deals with the individual behavior needs. With the reality is the two go hand in hand. And so that's kind of what got us started. We started our own private school that grew and expanded, where we specialized with kiddos with behavioral difficulties. Contracted with the state, took over a lot of their special education um, contracts and things like that. But that's also where I got my education bug. So while being able to work with the kids 8 hours a day, both with education, but do it in a therapeutic setting, they got group therapy twice a week. They got individual therapy
Wow.
during their school day if they needed it. But I love that idea of being able to kind of be hands on with them for so much of the week. So, life and I, as I was transitioning and as a family, we were kind of expanding. We found ourselves going to Oklahoma, and that's where I decided I really wanted to get into working in higher education and working still with the non-traditional student and working with the adults now that either didn't graduate from high school or struggled in school and wanted, more in life, and did that for about 8 years and absolutely, loved it. And, kind of how I found Green Shoe, to be honest with you, Randy, is absolutely a God thing. I had a real close friend who used to work for me that now worked for a headhunting agency and called me and said, "You have got to check out this place, Green Shoe." They go, "It's perfect for you," because they knew my leadership background, but they also knew my counseling background. And there's like, you've got to, check them out. It's amazing what kind of work they're doing. And even when I was in the education world, we were always working in the nonprofit,
Mm-hmm.
field. And so he's like, you've got to look into them. And that's kind of how I got connected, and came in and met with our clinical director, Teresa, and our founder, Chad. And it's just been, yeah, amazing ever since, that launched.
It's when you talk about the education part, my neighbor is a teacher, and we
Hmm.
have conversations every day almost about. And matter of fact, he just retired because of the
Hmm.
same subject you're talking about. That he
Yeah.
believes that they, they need to have both. So these kids are
Yeah.
so broken, right? And they have no families, so to speak. In the Coachella Valley, there's a lot of Hispanics
Hmm.
in this area. So it's just amazing that you brought that up and you were able to create that in a school setting. And it sounds like it helped quite a few people. I would take it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, no, it's very, very, very successful in being able to work, with kiddos and being able to reach both their learning needs. And of course, what we found is a lot of times kids use, and of course, the behavior to distract from the learning,
Yeah.
and so once you really kind of focused on whatever those behavior needs were, and some were diagnosis, some, I mean, if were developmental issues, again, you had to look at the child as the individual.
Right.
It was amazing that how they then could learn. and then tapping into their strengths versus always focusing on weaknesses. Because I don't know about you, but if I had to spend my whole day with everybody telling me what I didn't do well, it would not be a fun day.
No, not at all.
So,
No,
yeah.
no, that's what got me. That was part of my abuse. Was always being told
Hmm.
I could do nothing right. Nothing I did was right. It was always wrong.
Yeah.
And it's a brutal system. And when you talked about the learning, just real quick, because I can remember a college professor I had. She was brutal. She great. She knew her stuff. And I was in a junior college, and she was teaching more at a master's level, because
Hmm.
and that's who she was, right?
Sure.
And I had to learn. I talked to one of my mentors, and she said, "Randy, look, she's not going to change. So you need to figure out how you can adapt to how
Hmm.
she's teaching." And now, again, I was an adult, so it was a lot easier for me to make that transition.
Sure.
But my wife and I took a communication class with rapport leadership, and there's 4 or 5 different ways that people learn. And the key that you said is we have to learn each individual. Each person's an
Right.
individual, and he might be able to learn just by reading. This guy by doing. I mean, that's how I
Hmm.
am. I can read, but I got to do, right?
Right.
And so we have to. I
Right.
think what I'm hearing you say is we have to learn to adapt to those different learning styles.
We do, or and it, just acknowledge that we all learn differently, and I get it. I mean, one of the biggest groups that I will advocate for anytime is teachers, and having then also taught in the special education public school, realm. As a teacher, if I could teach and have you see it, hear it, and feel it,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm able to reach most of my students.
Yeah.
And the reality is, by doing all of it, it's amazing how much you can learn and form that concrete, and not having to shove worksheet after worksheet after worksheet down my throat.
Right.
If that makes sense. And I'll be honest, it's so much more fun as a teacher to teach experiential, you know,
Oh yeah.
than let me just tell you how to do it and here's a bunch of work not that
Right.
I have to grade or
Right.
keep up with. So yeah.
Right. If you have a question about how to do it, if you didn't hear what I said the first time, sorry.
Right.
I
Right.
mean,
Exactly.
yeah. So it sounds like you've had quite the journey when it comes to this career, and it sounds like it's been a good one for you.
Well, there's been ups and downs,
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
and to be honest with you, gosh, it's been about 5 years ago. Life was not good.
Mm-hmm.
I was working a lot of hours, very very stressful. Wasn't seeing my family, physically taking a toll on myself, and I knew I had to make a change,
Mm-hmm.
and had to make a significant change just for me personally, and what all that was going on. And so, with obviously I have an amazing, family with their support, did. And, and it's interesting then how that change then led to Green Shoe, and I know we'll get in here in a minute talking about the model, but it's funny. It's not one of those places that you just kind of can work and, let me just run the business and then go home. This model is something you learn to have to kind of live through. And seeing some of that and learning some of that, it's been amazing about how my life has shifted and changed. And so when you ask me that question, I can tell you honestly right now, yeah, life is really good,
Yeah.
you know, and I now know how to be more aware so I don't get myself into situations like I was before. Things don't need to be rock bottom before I realize, oh, I'm not doing well. you know?
I
So,
think, I think all of us that are in the healing fields, that's an issue that we at some
mhm,
point in our career we face. It's
right.
burnout. It's burnout. I mean, we're dealing with a lot of other people's emotions and
Hmm.
feelings, and it's hard. It's hard not to take them on sometimes. It's not that we want to. It just kind of happens. That's been my
Yes.
experience, right?
Yes.
So when you talk
But
about the mo, go ahead. Go ahead.
oh no, I was like, and here's the other thing, if I can focus on everybody else's problems though, I don't have to focus on my own. So
Right.
some of that is I'm taking it on purpose. So that way I, can avoid dealing with my own stuff.
Exactly. And I've got a couple of clients right now, and it's very subject came up. I says, well, it sounds to me like you've been taking care of everybody else all your life, but who's taking care of you?
Hmm.
Nobody. I go, well,
Yeah.
one of them is an emergency room doctor. It's like you got to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't forget about you.
Yeah. At some point, your body's going to let you know, yeah,
Absolutely.
that you're not okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. So when talking about the model, tell us, what is Green Shoe and what is our model?
So the Green Shoe Foundation, we were founded in 2015. It started groups in 2016, and we offer a 5-day intensive outpatient retreat. And I'm going to focus on that word here in a minute. It's Monday through Friday. It's during the day, 8:30 to 5. And what we do is we go back and look at that 0 to 18 time period in our life and examine kind of how we learned how to do relationships. We all had caregivers, parents, guardians, important caregivers in our life, and look at those experiences and kind of then how they shaped us as adults. And so the biggest thing is, this is from Pia Melody, who's out of the Meadows in Arizona. She developed this model, and I'll kind of give, here's Facing Codependency is her book. And actually, this is it. This is what we do all in a nutshell. But it's a huge nutshell. It's pretty amazing. And how we look at the 5 core issues are self-esteem, boundaries, reality, our dependency. That's why this is, a model of codependency. And then the last one is moderation. How do we live our life in balance, really? And, we call it a retreat. It's not the kind where you go and you get to relax by the spa, and hang out. It's the retreat that we need, that we didn't know we needed. So it's very intensive work, going back and examining that, those relationships. And then we want to connect the dots on how we fit into those 5 core issues now, and then how we can live in balance and in moderation. And one of the things that we talk about throughout the whole entire week is one of her quotes is that we are perfectly imperfect. Yeah. As and that was a hard concept for me, because I'm perfect. Stephany was always perfect. But I have to be honest with you, Randy, that was one of the most, I think, freeing concepts when I, actually sat down and told myself I am perfectly imperfect. It's like, wow, I can make mistakes. I don't know, that may sound trite to some people, but for me, it was never okay. Growing up, I couldn't make a mistake. Yep. I had the perfect parents, the perfect family. We always had to go to church and look perfect, and that was difficult for me to sit there and be like, you know what, I'm not perfect, and that's what makes me amazing. Right. With that. And so that's, one of the biggest things is have folks kind of look at that. We talk about relational trauma. And I know you and I, kind of shared about this. A lot of times when we talk about trauma, and trauma is a big key word these days, which I'm glad. We need to be talking about trauma. The ACE study, those kinds of things, definitely. And I'm still shocked today about when we go out and talk with community groups, how many people have not heard of the ACE study, and all of that. We know emotional trauma, physical trauma, sexual abuse, all of that. But relational trauma is much more expanded, and it looks at experiences we had growing up, anything less than nurturing. And if we had caregivers, we experienced something less than nurturing. If we are caregivers now as an adult, we do things less than nurturing. As a parent, I have done things less than nurturing, with my kiddos. And so we take all of that, and what some people consider what they may be the big T trauma, as well as any and all life experiences, that now we've taken these messages to where we've skewed kind of those core issues. And we go back and we heal that. And we do a lot of experiential type of work during the week. There is the education component. Monday is spent really talking about the model, and learning it, and kind of identifying where you fit into the different scopes. Like, for example, with the core issue, self-esteem. It's every core issue kind of has its polar opposites. We either think we're less than other people, or maybe we are better than other people. Those are the two extremes. And where do we fit on that scale? And the biggest concept that I watch people, on Monday kind of go, the aha moment is, when we are born worthy. We're perfect. We're worthy little babies. That never changes. And I think, and for me, I was like, what do you mean that doesn't change? But again, we all know we do. We compare ourselves, growing up as kiddos, what kind of clothes do I have, or how do I look? And, as adults, what kind of job do I have compared to somebody else? Or, if I have all of these successes, then that makes me worthy. I have a high self-esteem because of that. Where self-esteem is just based on the fact that I am worthy, because That's just the fact.
Yeah.
I was born, God made me this worthy person, and that never ever changes. And so again, we want to look at where we fit. And the best thing about this, when we talk about moderation and living in balance, is Pia says, our goal is to be a functioning adult.
Right.
And that if we are a functioning adult, 60% of the time, we're doing awesome. And I mean, when I heard that, I was like, oh, okay, only 60% of the time. It's like that gave me a lot of grace there.
Yeah.
Because we flip into sometimes our wounded child, or for me, I flipped a lot into my adapted child, and different things. And we need those parts of ourselves sometimes. And we don't ever, ever want to negate the fact that we needed that sometimes growing up. For some of us, that was survival.
Absolutely.
And that's one thing too. We absolutely acknowledge that. But now as an adult, I may not need that anymore. And so how do I heal from that? And then also take care of those parts of me that needed that? We talk a lot about our inner kiddos,
Absolutely.
And I know, yeah, absolutely. It's talking about healing those inner kiddos, because they're with us, and we're the adult now. We get to take care and nurture those parts of ourselves with that. So it's an absolutely life-changing week. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but there's so much that happens, and it's different for every person. It is done in a group setting. So there are 5 members in each group, and each group has their own licensed therapist that's been trained in the PMLD post-induction therapy model. And that group component is so vital, because being able to share those experiences with other people, in a trusting and safe environment, it's amazing those connections that are made, and then how that happens, with that.
Yeah, you realize you're not alone
Right.
in a group
Right.
setting. It's like, man, I'm not alone. The other people are going through this too. Because
Mm-hmm.
I know in my times of living as a victim, I'm the only one it happened to.
Yeah.
Why did it happen to me? I can remember as a high school kid walking down the street, looking up, saying, God, why me? Out of all the
Mm-hmm.
millions of kids in this world, why me?
Mm-hmm.
So it's I think that in itself is healing, just knowing other people have
Yeah,
that.
no, that I'm not alone in
No.
this.
Well,
Um,
one of the guys in the men's group that I belonged to for a while, he said this. He says, only another survivor understands another survivor.
mhm,
And I find that it's like only another alcoholic understands another alcoholic.
mhm.
And it was very, it's like, that's power. That's pretty much the truth of it, too.
It is. Now I'm going to say something a little different
Okay.
from that as
Yeah.
well, though, because sometimes having somebody who can't understand, did not go through something similar,
Uh-huh.
hear me and listen and have compassion.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things we talk about, especially when we're talking about boundaries, is we use what we call the talking listening boundary. Is I hear you, but I don't have to throw my feelings onto you or take ownership of that.
Exactly.
But know that I hear you. And sometimes that is just as powerful, because then we learn how we can communicate with others. Because, after this week, we go back to the real world, right?
Right.
And, whether it's relationships with our families, our partners, our children, the biggest thing we really strive for is we tell people to take their parenting hats off on Monday. But that's hard, because the whole time I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I did this to my kids. I said these things, I did this. But we go back into that, and that we know now how to express ourselves and share our story. And we have the right to have our own feelings and share,
Yep.
but then also how to help them not know that. And I'm not asking you to be responsible for my feelings,
Right.
and being able to share and have that conversation. And that way too, when they have feelings and they're, let's say, mad or angry, I don't have to take responsibility. I know how to hear their anger, but I don't have to take responsibility for it anymore.
Right.
And that is, sometimes what's so powerful.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times on my presentations, one of the last slides I'll do, what can I do to help a survivor? So, somebody,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just that is that if they come to you and they want to talk, just listen. That can be the most healing. Don't try to fix them, because you can't fix them. And
Mm-hmm.
what they need to be is they need to be heard, because likely nobody's ever heard their pain in their entire life. So that's on your point too. We just got to make sure. I feel that we have to make sure that the person we're going to go talk to Like you say, we set that boundary right up front. I want to talk to you about something, but I just want you to listen to me. If I
Yeah.
want feedback, I'll ask for it, because in my experience has been too many people want to give feedback, and a lot of times the feedback they give is, that happened a long time ago. Get over it. And it's really
Yeah.
it's really harmful feedback. So
Yeah.
it's good that that's part of the program, is you're able
Mm-hmm.
to create that boundary with everybody that say, hey,
Yeah.
I need to talk, and I'm not sitting there dumping this on you. I don't want you to take it on, but I just need to get this off my chest.
Right. And that's so important, because a lot of times we weren't taught how to set boundaries growing up.
Right.
I know for me, a lot of those boundaries were set for me,
Yeah.
which sounds great and all, but when all of a sudden you're 18 and you're off to college and you have no idea how to set a boundary,
Yep.
you may find yourself in some difficult situations,
Yep. Absolutely.
And then, or being the people pleaser,
Yeah.
all the
Oh, yeah.
time. So, I'll take it on. I don't want to set boundaries.
All right.
The other aspect of boundaries too that's fascinating is sometimes it's the opposite. It's the individual who sets too many boundaries. They put up walls to keep people away. And so, I talked about those two extremes. So finding out, where do I fit, and how can I kind of get more to the middle of that.
That's a good point too. Yeah, because you
Mm-hmm.
build these walls up, and one of the couples we were counseling last night, both of them have put walls up. His is still growing though, and I'm working with him. We've got to start taking that wall down.
Yeah.
It's blocking you from your healing process.
Yeah.
So I'm working with him on that. So those walls can be horrendous.
And it's scary to bring them down, because a lot of times they're there for safety, or we think we need them for safety.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it's like you just got to take it down. You're not tearing the whole wall down in one shot. I mean, it's just one piece of the wall at a time.
Yeah.
So and it's funny that book, my wife, The Codependency by P.M. Melody, she got that book, and she'll tell you that when I was reading it, on top of every page it says Kathy, Kathy, this is you, Kathy, this is you, Kathy, right? And so that's a good book. She really enjoyed it, and we recommend it to a lot of our couples. So
I after my first interview with Green Shoe, Teresa was like, "Here, take this book. I want you to read it." And so I'm thinking, I'm going to read it as a research for this interview job that I'm really wanting. And I read it. I was like, "Holy cow!" It's like, wow. I've had all of these years of training as a therapist. I thought I know what codependency is. I had no idea. And being somebody who's the anti-dependent. I never asked for help. I can do it all myself. Well, who knew that was codependency? And so, it was really.
If I remember right, there's a statement in my book that says that codependency is actually more deadly than drug or than heroin or alcohol, and it kills your emotions and your feelings and your spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
It's really quite the deadly disease when it comes to those three things.
Yeah. And it's silent. We don't recognize it.
No, it's subtle. It's just there. You don't even understand it.
Right.
So with that and all that, what population do you serve? I know you have groups of 5. So what population do you serve?
So it's adults 21 and older.
Okay.
And the reason for the 21 is because, we want a couple years kind of outside of that, reaching 18 and those experiences, to be able to reflect back on that.
Okay.
And I have folks that call us and say, "I think I'm too old to attend." I'm telling you right now, there's never too old.
No.
We have folks from 21 to 21 at heart,
Right.
Men and women, and they are co-ed groups.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that in itself can be a very powerful, experience. Yeah. We do tend sometimes be more on a higher percentage of females. So you might have an all female group in attending. So again, there's, just depending on the makeup of the group that week. Because of COVID, we're only operating 2 groups a week in our facility that we're at. And a lot of that just being able to still be able to spread out and have space, to do the work. Because again, we're doing very emoting work. And so, in attempt to try to keep people safe. So, but I have some very, very exciting news with us. It's kind of exciting because we haven't gone public with this. Not that we can't, but we have purchased a ranch outside, just about 10 miles from where we are in Edmond. That's going to enable us to be able to expand and have outdoor space, but a much bigger indoor facility to be able to host more groups and be able to do that. So I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Well,
Um,
I'm glad you brought that up. That was one of my questions because Eddie mentioned that. Hey,
uh-huh.
ask her about the new
About the
facility,
ranch.
about the
Yeah.
ranch. So,
Yeah. So our goal is to be there next January. So
okay,
with the remodel and the construction, to be able to have the facilities, to be able to operate the groups. I don't like being on a waiting list. I'll be really honest. I know people say on the business sense, yes, it's an awesome thing that we, have the high demand. On a therapeutic side, I want to be able to get people in.
yeah, I agree
You
with
know,
that 100%. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So that's in Edmonton, outside Edmonton. You said Oklahoma,
It's just outside of Edmond. Yeah. So it's
Edmonton.
actually in. But like I said, it's only about it's 10 miles north of Oklahoma City.
Okay,
So it's really interesting how close we are to the city. But that's one thing that I do like about Oklahoma is we're close to the city, but yet we can be out
yeah,
and spread out pretty quickly.
that's great. Yeah, so that'll be a year from now, basically, a year from
Yes,
January. So cool.
yes,
I look forward to seeing what that's going to be all about. So I know you guys are a nonprofit, right? And
yes.
so who are the people that are behind the scenes, the one that really support the Green Shoe
hmm
Foundation? You don't
So
have to
our
mention.
founder,
Okay.
yeah,
Say
no,
you
our
don't.
founder
Go ahead.
and he actually went through this program out at the meadows, and
Okay.
so for him it was absolutely life changing. It was life changing for his family, and he wanted this to be something that anybody, and initially anybody, in Oklahoma, he's very tied, to this state, and it was important to him that anybody had access to this type of treatment. It's thousands of dollars to be able to go and receive this week. And this is a program that we do require a deposit
Mm-hmm.
upon scheduling, and it's completely an accountability factor. That's all it is. And when you complete the program on Friday, you get a check back for your deposit in full.
Wow.
There's no, fine print or anything. It's an absolutely no cost program. And we are funded in a way that we will be able to provide this for many, many, many years to come.
That's
So
awesome. That is
yeah,
so
and
awesome.
again, he provides the funding, but we also I receive funding from a lot of different sources, and sometimes our former participants, our alumni,
Mm-hmm.
that matters just as much because they know how important in healing
Right.
that this is, and that they're able to financially support the program.
So the program itself is free.
hmm
Besides the deposit, you get that back at the end of the week. But we still the only cost that's really involved is the flight there, if you have to
Yeah,
fly, and the
yeah,
hotel rooms and your food, right?
yes,
But that in itself is what you're offering is
hmm
priceless, absolutely
absolutely,
priceless. I mean,
yeah.
there's not a whole lot of places that you can go like to a place like you guys have and
hmm
get this kind of treatment and this deep kind of treatment for basically no cost.
Right. And
That's
it's the kind of program that, really, Randy, 99% of us would benefit from.
yeah.
You know, we talk about anybody obviously that has experienced trauma, in their life. And remember how I kind of explained, that's a pretty wide net.
Yeah.
But folks that feel like they're stuck in relationships or, feeling depressed, anxiety, dealing a lot with addiction. And of course, that's another thing we look at kind of in a broader scope. We're not just talking about chemical addictions,
Right.
but
Right.
anything that takes us out of our reality.
Yeah.
It's amazing nowadays how much these things have become an addiction, and
Yeah.
folks have that electronic need, especially when we've gone through the type of quarantine situations, people being at home. It's been harder to reconnect with folks. And so, we look at all of those different types of addictions. Obviously, codependency is something we talk a lot of, about, and people will call, having been referred to work on codependency. We have a lot of people that once they talk with us, they realize, oh, I guess I do need to work on codependency. That's a new thing for them.
Right.
But everybody, we have them go through a phone assessment with one of our therapists. And that's a great time too to kind of get a little bit more in depth about the program and how it may apply to somebody as an individual. It's also, there's no commitment. Once you do the phone assessment, if you want to schedule, great. If not, then, there's not a commitment that you have to,
Right.
if that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a big step. One of the only other conditions is if anybody is in a current chemical addiction, we just ask that they're 30 days sober before they
Yeah.
attend. And the reality is that way too, they're just going to get the benefit
Yeah.
of the program. And we don't want anybody to come through and not, be able to fully experience.
Right. No, I agree with that philosophy 100%.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have somewhat of a clear mind in order to do this.
Yeah.
Because it is deep
Yeah.
work and it's hard work.
Yes, and it is deep work and emotional work, and we need folks to be able to have that support system kind of in place when they're going through that week. So, and we have folks that are referred by therapists, and we have a lot that this may be the first time that they're kind of, dipping their toe into the therapy world. It's a pretty big leap if they do. I'll let you know that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the week, everybody, we kind of do an individualized aftercare program
Perfect.
for them. Whether it's, we do not do individual therapy. We only do this retreat. So that's why we, work with a lot of therapists all across the country and work with their folks. And then we want to send them back,
Okay.
and that way they can continue the work that they've done with us, with their current therapist. And then if they don't, then there's a lot that, obviously that we can refer to or, recommend or
Right.
suggest, the type of work that they can continue to do.
Yeah, I know when I was going through my healing process, I had a really good therapist out here that I was seeing, and she, after a year, gently got me to go to the Betty Ford outpatient program.
Mm-hmm.
What you're talking about there is that I was going to Betty Ford outpatient, but I was also still seeing her at
Yes.
the same time. And she knew some of the counselors that were in Betty Ford, so they worked real close with each other with my permission. And so we were able to stay on the same track. There wasn't, well, the counselors over here said this, and Deborah, you're saying that. Which way do I go? They were on the same page.
Right.
Which I
Right. And like you said, with the release, obviously, we're able to kind of help with that continuity of care, and with the current therapist. And we have a lot of therapists that obviously we've developed relationships with because they've seen the work that their clients have done, that this kind of becomes one of their things they use. We've got a group out of Arkansas, and if you go to their website, they'll say we actually refer most of our clients at some point to do a weekly retreat. And so they use us as that way to really kind of help with that therapy component.
I'm thinking out loud right now because I have a client that I'm very much thinking about referring her to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Her trauma has just come out in the last 6 months, 8
Mm-hmm.
months. She finally she had some dreams and she talked to somebody and it just opened up
Mm-hmm.
all these. And now she's fine. That's why she's controlling. There's a whole lot of stuff. And I'm going to talk to her about it because I think it would really benefit her to go back.
Yeah.
Back there for a week. The problem is she's a businesswoman. They got the company, and I have to just say go, just go.
Right.
So,
right. And that is one of the difficult things because it is you've got to take a week off,
Yeah.
From work, and that's maybe kind of the other side of our mission is being that advocate for mental health. We're really big with talking about breaking the stigma. If you're on our socials, that'll be one of the things you'll see from us, and trying to make, if you had to have surgery and had to be out for a week, it's no big deal to take time. It's really not. And our mental health needs to be just as important as our physical. And it's amazing actually how the two, go hand in hand. We do a lot of work, looking at Bessel's, The Body Keeps the Score, and how our emotions play out in our bodies so much. And so sometimes taking this week for your mental health actually does help your physical health, with that. So working with different companies and different campaigns to really kind of get that message out.
Well, and the reality is we're doing surgery on our emotions.
Exactly. No, that's exactly what we're doing. Yeah.
Exactly. So we can take care of ourselves physically, but when it comes to our emotions, our spirituality, and our feelings, no big deal. I'll get through it.
Yeah. No, you have to do the same healing that you would if you're, recovering from surgery.
So, I want to respect your time. I don't know how much time you got. I don't want to take it all up. I got a couple more, just two more. And one is for those that are listening. I put your website up on the screen there. What is a process in order to get registered?
So, two ways. One, go to the website. It's got great information. And there is a page that you can provide just, your basic information to register. Fill that out and you'll get a call from one of us and we will schedule you with your phone assessment. And again, we've always done phone assessments, so that way it's easy for anybody. You don't have to be local to do those. They take about 45 minutes to an hour.
Okay.
And it is done with one of our licensed therapists, or you can call us directly. And again, our phone number is on the website or email, and you just call and schedule that phone assessment.
Okay. Perfect.
Once you complete the phone assessment, then you're able to schedule for your week. We will, we have a lot of people, like you said, that they wanting to do the summertime. I teach school or I'm working. And so we're able to schedule folks out however long they need to be scheduled out. And then easy paperwork. And then we look forward to having you then on that first Monday. So
awesome. Pretty easy process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not difficult at all. But real quick, do you take insurance? Well, yeah.
No, we don't.
That was a dumb question because you don't pay for it. I'm sorry, my bad.
No. And again, as a therapist that came out of the 90s, yes, again, that was the other appealing piece.
Yeah. I don't know where that came from.
I do no billing.
Knucklehead,
Yeah. And I will tell you this as well. Again, we do work some folks too. If that deposit's still a financial burden, we have some amazing alumni who have set up sponsorships.
Okay, cool. Great.
And so we don't ever want the financial aspect to hinder somebody from coming through the program.
Absolutely perfect. That's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. So one more question. Is there a question you wish I would have asked you?
Oh gosh, that's a tricky one, Randy, because I could almost keep talking on and on and on and on. Oh, I know. Why the name Green Shoe?
Why the name? Perfect.
Yes, so I get asked that a lot. The first and foremost, green's the color for mental health awareness.
Okay.
And so that's the most important thing. But there's also a term in the stock market world. And again, remember, I'm a therapist. I'm not a financial person. And it's called Green Shoe. And if you know of anything about our funding and things like that, that kind of had a fun tie-in. But if we're trying to, walk the walk on a daily basis with mental health, we need our green shoes. So that's something that helps us kind of keep traveling and keep working, through this model. So
exactly. And it is like you say, traveling and walking. It is a lifetime journey.
Yes.
My approach is this: you're not going to do this for 6 months or a year and then you're all done and over with. It's lifelong. It's not as intense as it is maybe the first 6 months or whatever. But you've got to learn. There's so much you've got to learn along the way. That's you're just gonna keep growing and keep growing. So.
Yeah, this is a continual learning process. My goal is I just want to be my true authentic self. And that's how I find joy. And there's some days that are not joyful at all. And that's the way life is. But I find joy in the fact that I know how to deal through them. And I've got people now in my life that are on the journey with me. And so, that's so important. And, we're not a faith-based program. However, this model really signifies the connection to a higher power. And so, that has helped me to make sure I have that connection and my spirituality and faith, and that's very important to me. But that also it's important to us that we're very inclusive to any and everyone that walks through our door.
No, exactly. And I think that connection, like you say, whatever that is, as long as it's not a tree, but I think we talked about that. It might be, I don't know, but that connection to the higher power, I say, is absolutely essential to our overall healing process.
Yes.
If we don't have that connection and that's not at the center of our lives, and I walked away from God for 38 years. I didn't want nothing to do with him until I got in recovery, and then I found the real God, and now it's I'm a I'm a pastor and I do that. I never thought I'd be a pastor, but it's that component of the higher power.
Yes.
That's really kept me grounded through
Yeah.
all of this, through all the tough
Yeah.
times. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. Absolutely agree.
So, well, Stephany, I thank you for your time. I appreciate it very much. Um, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna work. I hate the word try. I'm gonna work on figuring out how I can get out there and do one of these things for a week, just to. I can always learn. I can always be healed more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm of that type. So, um, you have any last words you want to say before we?
No, I just appreciate you so much, and you being a voice, and loved talking with you. And yeah, and I can't wait for you now get to come on to our podcast. And we'll
Just let me
continue.
know when. Just let me know
Yes,
when.
we're going to continue. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
continue the conversation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And no, and just for people to be out there and just taking care of themselves.
Exactly. You said continue the conversation. When we rode my bike across America, our hashtag was start the conversation.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's great. So real quick, if you guys are all listening, you want to find out more about what I do, you can go to changeyourlifestorynow.com for my life coaching, courageoushealers.org for the foundation where we deal with help men, women, and their families heal from the scars of sexual abuse. And then my books, Healing the Wounded Child Within, is on Amazon and Kindle, paperback, and an Audible. My 30-day devotional to wholeness is on Amazon and Kindle and paperback. And my little, real simple 7-day challenge workbook is also on Amazon and paperback only. So you can get all 3 of those books there. So one click, and it'd be great. I'm hoping to get my book released in Spanish pretty soon. They've been working on it. Pro bono, so it's just taking time, and that's okay. It's not costing me a dime, so they can't complain. So anyways, thanks for joining us again. We appreciate it. I'm gonna go into our outro, and then I'll see you in the green room here in a couple seconds.
Okay.
All
Thanks,
right.
Randy.
Thanks, Stephany. Bye.
Bye.
This has been Healing Courageously with Randy Boyd. We will have a new episode every Monday. Please like us on iTunes or Google Play. If you would like to know more about the services available from Randy, please visit him at changeyourlifestorynow.com. Thank you for spending time with us. We'll see you next week. And remember, if nobody tells you they love you today, Randy does.